topic. I know I've met some of you before from Cabrillo and out in the public. Like I say, I've been doing this for a while here in the county, and I'm just going to go through the nuts and the bolts of what the cottage food program is. If you have any questions on a particular slide, feel free to stop me. And again, we'll have time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions I didn't quite get to. So, let me see if I can get this going. Well, it worked earlier.
Is it on?
Yes, that's me. We'll be talking about cottage food. I tend to pace around a little bit, so I'll be talking to both sides of the room. So starting at the beginning, where this came into law, January 2013, California Cottage Food Law came through the Assembly as Assembly Bill 1616. Not so important anymore. No one's tracking it. It's all law. It's part of the California Retail Food Law. So it allows individuals to prepare and or package certain non-potentially hazardous foods in private home kitchen, and it's referred to as cottage food operations, or CFOs. We love abbreviations down there at County Health and in regulation in general. So CFOs, that's what we're talking about, cottage food operations or cottage food operators. And the real key to these things is allowing certain non-potentially hazardous foods, which we're going to get into. That's really a crux on this, is what types of food can you do as part of a cottage food operation. And it's a big change in the law. Prior to this, all food, if someone had asked me prior to 2013, can I make food at home and sell it? No. It was a real easy line. Nope, you can't make food at home and sell it to the public. So this is a significant change. There was a lot of fight back from health departments, but now we're getting into it. We've seen a lot of good operators come out of this, and yeah, if you can make the food safely at home, why should we be there to stop you? We should just make sure it's the public's having safe food. So traditional permits, what we've had in the past are wholesale permits and retail permits, and those still exist. Wholesale permits are handled by the state. We'll get into what the state health department is, and retail permits are handled by the county environmental health. So at the state, they handle what they call processed food registrations. If someone calls me on a daily basis and says, I want to make food and sell it, my first question is, well, maybe one of the first questions is, where do you intend on selling it? Are you going to be packaging it and stocking shelves somewhere? Well, that's a wholesale permit. Those are handled by the state. I say, well, contact the state health department, get a processed food registration if that's what you're intending to do. Versus if you're going to be directly selling to customers, opening a storefront, having a cart, having a vehicle, those are all retail permits. And those are things that we can handle at the local level. The local environmental health services, maybe a term you're not familiar with, it's the health department. Environmental health is just we're focusing on the health of the environment and how that affects people. Consumer protection or retail food permits are part of that department. So sometimes people are fishing around. Is it part of the planning department? Is it the city? In this case, county environmental health is what we're going for. Health department as food-related issues.
That would be for farmers markets and things like
That's correct too. Yeah. Well, there's another slide at the end of here where I'm going to talk about permit categories, and we can talk about specifics of different categories at that time. But yes, farmers markets are permitted under retail food permits. So the state, as I mentioned, is the California Department of Public Health, or CDPH. Here's their webpage, which goes to their cottage food. If you just type in CDPH, cottage food, or CFO, it's going to link you right to these pages. It's a great page if you're interested in getting information on cottage foods. They have frequently asked questions. They're the ones who maintain this approved foods list, which is something we're going to get into in just a second. And they have great labeling guidelines as well too. So if it's something you're interested in, go to the state. They're the ones who, it's a state law, the county is enforcing a state law. So this is where it kind of starts, and we're here filtering it through, getting people to match those laws. And then again, county environmental health. We have applications available. We've been issuing permits. We may conduct inspections. We'll get into when inspections are conducted and when they're not in just a second. So that's the office here. The contact information is in the packet, or we're down here on 701 Ocean Street, County Building, room 312, third floor. Okay. So, Class A and Class B cottage food. So there's two categories here. When they wrote this law, they made a two-tier system. So Class A, Class B. So a great question. I want to, if someone calls, I want to start a cottage food operation. I say you're looking at Class A or Class B. So it's the difference between direct sales and indirect sales. So if you're interested in, again, like we said, it's kind of like that retail wholesale idea. If you're interested in stocking your product in a shelf, you want to get your product in, let's just say Whole Foods, well then Class B is what we're looking for. Those are indirect sales. You as a producer are not having interaction with the end customer. Versus Class A is where all your sales are coming right directly to the customer. There's not, whether that's out of your house or if you have made a contact online and you're going to be delivering it, those are definitely direct sales. Some of the fees are up here. These are current fees. It's $80 the first year for a Class A with a $26 renewal, so very inexpensive. There's no inspection conducted. What we're going through is that checklist. Again, the applications are in that packet as well. There's checklists you go through. We'll give you a phone call, review that, make sure it's all matching up, and basically you're free to go out there. And if we see a problem, if we hear problems, then we can come out and do inspections and follow up. Class B, there is an initial inspection. That's why it's more expensive, $191 annual fee, because you got to pay for time to someone to come out there, talk through it. So if we get a Class B inspection application, we'll call, set up an appointment, come out and talk to you, go through the nuts and bolts of it. So everyone getting that difference between Class A and Class B? Good. Yeah, here we go, the approved foods list. Now again, this is right off the stage, out of the state. This is the initial 16 categories, and they made an addendum in May with another about 7 categories. So this is really it. Your food has to fit into one of these categories. I could read them all, but basically baked goods without cream. So your cookies, breads, those kind of things. Candy like toffee and brittle, chocolate-covered nuts and dried fruits, pasta, dried mixes, fruit pies, granola, herb blends, honey, jams. A lot of people are coming with jams, jellies, preserves. They have to meet this federal regulation here too, which is it's very complicated. Honestly, I read through it and I'm like, who wrote this? It's not even like a formula you can really get into. It's hard to read. But basically, it's traditional jellies and jams, so fruit and sugar and pectin is what we're looking at. A lot of people have come about kind of these creative jams. Anything with alcohol is not going to meet that definition. So the pepper jams and jellies aren't meeting that definition. I know, so a lot of bummers out there. But again, you got to fall into this. It's basically fruit and sugar is what we're looking for here. People have tried to make substitutes with sugar substitutes. There are some allowances for that. But again, that's the key on that. It does take a lot of time if it's a non-traditional jelly, and sometimes the answer's been no, we can't do that.
Excuse me?
Yes?
With substitutions for sugar, there are allowances or are not?
So the question was, are there allowances for sugar substitutes? And there are. As part of this federal law, there are. If you're doing sugar substitutes, like I think they're thinking, what do they call it, like that saccharine, so like that, not honey so much, right? Which is what most people around here want to do. They're trying to eliminate sugar and processes, processed substitutes. But again, that is the tricky part on this, is meeting that definition of it. Then nuts, popcorn, vinegar and mustard, roasted coffee, dried tea, waffle cones, and pizzelles, which is some kind of like pizza shell. I don't know. How this list came together is anomalous, right? A lot of people came together and petitioned their
Pizzelles are Italian cookies.
Italian cookies, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, my bad. See, look at that. I got an answer here. Thank you. See, I didn't even know what a pizzelle was. I haven't had anyone apply for a pizzelle yet.
Pizzelle.
Oh, excuse me. Wow, look at it. I'm going to sit down now. Pizzelle, huh?
Abbiamo degli italiani qui.
Ah, see, okay, I didn't mean to insult anyone here. So I've learned something tonight too. I haven't had an application yet for pizzelles, so maybe I will. So then the new foods as of May, they added cotton candy, candied apples, confections like salted caramel, fudge, marshmallow bars, covered marshmallows, buttercream frosting, dried dehydrated vegetables, dried vegetables for soup mixes, vegetable and potato chips, and ground chocolate. It was really interesting with this frosting thing because they'd approved baked goods that was on the original list, like cupcakes. But then there were some jurisdictions having trouble. Well, icing, frosting, that's not approved. So what were you supposed to do? Make a dry cake out there? So anytime, again, they've done really good to try to make it black and white. These are the categories, but anytime you make something black and white, right, what happens? There just squeezes out more shades of gray. So Now there is some frosting allowances, but basically everything here is what they're calling non-potentially hazardous food. Doesn't require refrigeration, right? It's going to be shelf stable is what we're going for on this. Yeah, question?
So they're saying chocolate-covered marshmallows, but what about just marshmallows?
That is a great question. So the question was, it says chocolate-covered marshmallows. What about regular marshmallows? And at first, it did not allow for marshmallows. And I think, I haven't had that come up yet, but I would assume the interpretation is it's still no, you couldn't make marshmallows.
Wow, those are good.
I know. It is strange, right? Because I guess what they're talking about in this,
It doesn't go in the other category, regular candy category?
it might.
Regular candy.
So I'll go back here for a second. So candy such as brittle and toffee is a bit anomalous there. And then I haven't had anyone propose marshmallows. I know it's been an issue. I go to statewide meetings on these things too.
Old marshmallow recipes were always made with egg white.
Right.
Nowadays, you don't do that unless you're
Right.
trying to be fancy schmancy. It's just gelatin.
Right. So a lot of things when we get when we get something, if you think you want to do it, propose it, and then we'll walk through it. And if you can convince me that it's safe or it's going to fit in these categories, I need to justify it's going to fit in one of these categories, then we can move forward. So if you said I'm going to make marshmallows, I would do a little more research and make sure that that's okay. Again, it hasn't had a proposal for that. I can see it makes sense. Why would a chocolate-covered marshmallow be there and not a regular marshmallow? And then you see things that are in here that are wide open, like mustards. There's thousands of different recipes for mustards out there, and yet we're categorizing them all as one thing. So we still need to make sure that they're a stable product, that they're going to meet the definition, and again be something that's safe, that doesn't require refrigeration is what we're looking for here. Did you have a question too?
Yeah, I was wondering if hot sauce might fit into that category 14 somewhere in there. If it anything of a certain pH.
Yeah, it doesn't, unfortunately not. So hot sauces, we've had things for barbecue sauces people have wanted to do. Again, it's not in the category in there. Any kind of marinades, things that you'd find in the store that are shelf stable and jarred. Again, it's not there yet.
What about extracts?
Extracts, such as what, like liquid extracts?
Like vanilla extract or?
Yeah,
It's all, I don't know.
Probably not. It's
I don't see how it's going to fit into any of these